Greetings, welcome everyone. I'm seeing some familiar faces whom I haven't seen in a while, and I'm just smiling ear to ear, just very happy and joyful to see many of you. So yeah, many of us are in Mi'kma'ki, joining from the unceded lands of the Mi'kmaq, people of the dawn, people of the eastern door. And as we get started, I'm just lighting some sage here to start in a good way. And, while land acknowledgements have become quite, common practice, sometimes mechanistic, we as Indigenous peoples acknowledge the lands as a way of recentering these very lands, the waters, the skies, the sentient beings, to acknowledge that we're in community with these beings, that we as humans are one of many species of life living together with the lands, in community with the lands, not in dominion over, and that we're in relations with these lands and in kinship with them. So the practice for me, and I think for many Indigenous people, is really to remind us of those values and ways of knowing and being, that the lands, the waters, the skies, the trees, the plants, all the sentient beings, they're alive and they're with us, informing us our daily lives, and play a role in reconnecting to our bodies, reconnecting to our spirits, and with each other. And so I'm very excited that the voices and the women with us today are really going to help to bring to life the voices of these lands and waters. We're very, very fortunate to be in conversation with Shalan, Joudry, and Sarah Prosper today. So in this sort of interactive conversation, we'll talk more about the meaning of land and water and those stories and bring them to life. So introducing these two wonderful Mi'kmaq women. Shalan Joudry is an oral storyteller, a poet, an actor, playwright, podcast producer, cultural interpreter from Alsitguk, Bear River. Her theatrical performance, Koqm, opens at the Neptune Theatre in Jibuktuk in Halifax, April 5th. And Sarah Prosper is from Eskazoni. She created the multidisciplinary performance Samqwan to raise awareness about the lack of water in many First Nations communities across the country and the deep spiritual relationship Indigenous peoples have with the water. So to bring in our voices in the space as well, we're going to, as Susan mentioned, engage in some brief introductions and discussion and locating ourselves and to really arrive in the space. And so we'll spend a few minutes connecting with each other. So the questions will be posted in the chat, which we'd like you to just share with each other in the breakout rooms. And the questions are: where are you located in ancestry and on the land? What is a place where you might go to connect with land and water? Take us to that place. What are the sights, the smells, the sounds? And just allow about 3 minutes for each person to answer those questions. So we're going to transition to that now. And it's about each other. I hope that you were able to learn more about each other and just share stories as well. All right, so Shalan and Sarah, if I could see you both. Great. Begin discussions. Yeah, so nice to see you, Sarah. This is the first time that we're meeting.
Yes, welcome. Hello. I'm very excited to be here today.
Yeah.
Shalan,
I've already introduced you both already, but maybe I'll just quickly share again about who you both are. So Sarah, you're a dance artist, a choreographer, director from Escazoni. You're currently earning a Bachelor of Science in Therapeutic Recreation from Dalhousie. And your show will be showing at Neptune in May, right? Samqwan. And I think I saw you were part of another play as well at Dal's Art Theatre.
I'm part of two of them, Igwaju and the Birds, and I was recently there with Alan and the Thundermakers with Symphony Nova Scotia. Yeah.
Wow. And shalan is an oral storyteller, poet, actor, playwright, podcast producer, cultural interpreter from Elzikuk, Bear River. Your theatrical performance, Koqm, opens at Neptune Theatre in Halifax, April 5th. So yeah, whichever one of you want to start first, maybe sharing a little bit of a scene from your performance that gives a little bit of a glimpse of what it's about. Share with us.
Oh my gosh, it's always hard to figure out who goes first, hey?
Rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah. Well, it's so nice to see everybody. It's really great to have these conversations and to be in conversation together with others. Sometimes maybe, as artists that we just, we're toiling away, but it's really important to take these moments to kind of reflect on why did I want to do this in the first place? I'm just so tired. But so you asked about a scene. Well, I've been thinking lately that really the main character who never speaks is this Koqm, is this really old grandmother tree. And so we hear from, in the end, really it's 6 different Ulnur Mi'kmaq women. We hear just a glimpse of their story, of their lives. It doesn't necessarily need to be something large, like being in battle, or something that heroes are also everyday, amazing, strong, beautiful Ulnu Mi'kmaq women who are leaders because of the choices that they've made about how to pass on teachings, how to hold sacred fire, how to sit there and protect water. These women that we're watching every day right now who inspire me, those are also heroes, that the hero's journey is not necessarily going out and fighting some big monster, that it's passing on language, it's forgiving others, it's being able to demonstrate healing. And so I've been inspired in my life by watching amazing Ulnu women. And as a storyteller, I wanted to be able to see, well, how can I not just narrate some stories to help us imagine a little bit of 400 years of history, but how can I also challenge myself as a storyteller to embody these different women? And in the end, this isn't just a performance, is that they are gifting me strength, real shalan in 2022, And what's really fun about Sarah and I is that we both have a role in each other's shows and work, and so how to, for her, it's helping me with movement, and me, it was, the small part with poetry and words. And so that's just a little bit of a glimpse of what my piece is about. And I don't want anybody to be too surprised, but I do wear theater masks. It's part of helping to embody different characters. But Sarah, what about your show? What about Samqwan?
Malal and Shalan, and I'm honored to be here and talking with all of you and sharing in this very important time. And like Shalan said, you know, slowing down to remember why we did the thing we did, and how and why it was created or mentioned or, you know, expressed. I call it mostly an expression, because most of the time I don't know where it comes from. It just comes from out of our bodies and sharing. So a moment in Samqwan that I'll share is an iceberg. In creating Samqwan, it was during some very questionable times throughout the summer, and learning about, you know, communities across Canada who are not drinking clean water, and communities finding, you know, children, and very sad stories uprising. And what healing meant to me in those moments was water. And where do I go to water? And where can those, my Indigenous, fellow Indigenous people across Turtle Island go to feel healing next to water? So this iceberg scene is lifted by women in circle and risen, and it slowly falls to the ground. And we escape from underneath this iceberg with colors of water above your head, and women singing behind us to carry us and help us extract those memories that are unfolding from this iceberg. And then we lift it together. And beneath this iceberg, two children rise. And they dance, an expression of hope. And I like to share this because me and Shalan have been, you know, being with each other in this past 2 years has been a blessing of learning and knowledge holding and sharing of truth of who we are. So in those moments when you see us dancing and moving, it's our expression of ceremony through movement, and who we can be as Indigenous people in space, and sharing these stories of life and sacredness and water and land and life and givingness of motherhood and women, all in one, all in a swirl of an ocean. I could say Samqwan brings you to, and I don't want to spoil too much, but that is a moment of Samqwan that I hope that each of you get to experience.
So beautiful, the connections between women and water, and the roles that women have. From what I've learned from elders here about women's roles and responsibilities in taking care of the water and sharing those stories. And the iceberg, I love that metaphor for me, coming from the north, has so much meaning in sort of the very quickly melting ice, especially right now. Even the Sabaganagadie River around here, I can hear the ice crashing and melting, and it's just really the land is speaking to us all the time. And yeah, so I really love that. It's beautiful. Wanted to learn and hear a little bit more about some of your personal inspiration for these. You've already touched into a little bit of why these particular themes of Koqm and Samqwan. What drew you to create this performance, to really bring it to life? And was there a moment where that seed was planted and began to grow and flourish? And if you know anything about the wording itself, Koqm or Samqwan, I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
I can go ahead. So Samqwan, which means water, I guess through ceremonies that I've been to throughout my life, speaking and existing because of water, being alive and here and well today, because of water, because of someone. Everything to me is about someone. So inspiration, it's sort of hard to put it into fine detail because I don't think it quite exists for me. But my inspiration comes from the land, comes from being, centered and grounded from the land. The fact that it can do that and heal us and provide us with nurturing care, and elders who have taught me who and when and where to share your stories and why you do it. That inspires me. Because I'm not much of a speaker, but in expression of dance and the gift of movement and being able to do that, I don't own that, and I have to share it. And I remind myself that every day, that's what inspires me, and that other people can connect to that too, and have connected to that. Youth and children who have been a part of this, elders who have come from a long road of hardship and have shared that with us during Samqwan. And you see that intertwined and woven into all of it. And that's what truly inspires me. And of course, people like Shalan, I have to say, inspire me, to be your true self within these makings. What is your true self? What is your, who are you as a Mi'kmaq Onu woman? What does that bring, 5, 6, 7 generations from now? Why does this movement and expression matter? And if it's not said now, if it's not shown now, if it's not seen and brought out in front of me when it exists within me now, then what? So I guess that's around the areas of where I've become inspired the most. But yeah, I'll let Shalan share now.
Yeah, that sounds great, and so similar. Just that I come from a background of using words, and she comes from a background, of movement, physical movement, and and so she was talking about water, and here I want to talk about like forest, and that part of the land. But for this show specifically about Koqm, is that I was first thinking about this when I was doing my master's, and I was reading some old documents talking about our Olnu Mi'kmaq history. And after a while, I just remember starting to talk to people and say, a lot of these documents are written by male Europeans, and a lot of the people that they were referencing were our Olnu male ancestors, chiefs and shamans and things like that, our or Olnu hunters, and just more often, I thought like that's going through a lot of different particular lenses. So all of these stories of our past that are written stories. And so, in university, you really want to make sure that you've read things that have been written about the, what you want to talk about. But it was also, so some of it was interesting and some of it was, became a little bit hurtful, how I saw some women being described. But yet when you look around you and you know, inspired by old new women and the stories that are spoken about, like I have so much inspiration, you know, and so there was this, it didn't match what we see in, you know, in around our communities and, you know, in our circles and our families, about the roles of and the strength of our old new women. And it didn't really match, you know, what you're reading in these old documents. And so I started to imagine, well, I wonder what the women were going through. How did they respond? How were they a part of, or how did they, you know, just different through the colonial history, through the 400 years of specifically colonial history in, for example, Annapolis Royal, which is not too far from where I live. And these stories in Annapolis Royal, that in the last few years, there's a 400-year anniversary of something European colonial. And although it was meant to be a celebratory, for me, there's still some grief. Now, I come from mixed heritage. And so I feel like part of my role in the world is to help understand and build bridges, you know, as much as I can in that peace building work. But in order for me to really feel like, you know, that we're being heard, is to make sure that we're telling a diversity of stories. And so I wanted to get on stage in Annapolis Royal, now Chibuktuk, but get on stage and tell a different story, you know, stories that, you know, that I can imagine from the people around me, and the stories that I hear right now, and the women who inspire me now. And I wanted to tell that. So really, like when I think back to when this idea began, I would say, you know, about 10 years ago, going through that process, but also when I walk the land, and maybe this is something similar to Sarah, you know, is that just to be inspired by nature herself, you know, and to be listening and imagining. And me as a storyteller, like that's what I do constantly. It's hard to stop. It's hard to walk through the woods and not be imagining story. And when you meet a grandmother tree, you're looking at that bark and you're looking up and you're looking around. I mean, it's hard not to slow down and imagine. What has this grandmother tree not just seen and heard, but how has this grandmother tree taken care of our people, been medicine for our people? And I've spoken, Diane, with you and with you, Sarah, about the healing nature of, you know, of the forest, of the land, of water. And so I think about that a lot, about not only is nature healing for us now, but it's that we see what happens when we're disconnected from land, from nature. And so imagine just, you know, for thousands of years, our people being connected, being part of nature, and all that, you know, as medicine, and not just food and tools and material, but, you know, also as medicine to keep our people well. And how has nature given inspiration, you know, and taught our people? And now we're still learning from nature. There's things we have forgotten, and we're still learning from nature. And as an ecologist, I think about that. So every time that I get a chance to see an aged tree or an old growth forest, part of me grieves. Honestly, you know, I don't know what it's like for you two and everybody on the call, but I know that we have so very little percent of our old growth forest left in Mi'kma'ki. And that to me is also parallel with watching it, feeling the same kind of grief sometimes about what has happened to my Olnu ancestors. But yet there are still old trees, and yet there's still beautiful connected places in nature. And there are still people like Sarah speaking our language so that I can hear it and learn from them. There's still people teaching the drum songs and stories. And I had the, and I learned that at 15, I went to Mi'kmaq Williston Culture Camp and started to learn from elders back then. And so if there's still these beautiful things in our culture and on the land, then I shouldn't lose hope. And if I shouldn't lose hope, then none of us should lose hope that we can, that we can tell our stories this way or this way, and be in conversation together. Decolonizing story and theater for me is also about, like, how do we come together? It's not just us performing and you audience, it's that we're coming together in this space, like in circle and community. And this moment when Sarah's up on stage, it's as if somebody's given her, this moment, the talking stick, or me, and it's a moment to share it. And Sarah's piece, it's a collective, there's many people sharing. And, but that we're in conversation. And so I feel that, and I feel that, it's great to listen to Diane, to Sarah, that we're all in conversation. And some people in the, and listening in on the call right now, we're all taking turns being in conversation. And I just hope that what I can, these stories that I can tell, that it's with that, in mind, that we're all trying to heal ourselves and help heal each other.
Beautiful. We could sit and listen to you both talk all day. Yeah, I can sense into how you really, both of you, commune with your ancestral lands, and can really feel into how you're able to really listen and hear what we need to know as humans in this time right now, in these very challenging, unprecedented times. But I won't ask you what I want to ask, because it seems a little odd to say, what do you think the land wants us to know? But no, I will ask, maybe lastly, you're both, it's really interesting that you're both kind of in the sciences as well, and you're using art. And what do you think art can do as a form of communication, as a form of transmitting knowledge and Indigenous perspectives related to land and water that maybe science might not be able to do? Both of you kind of straddle both of these worlds. And so how is that different from using science, or the rational way that's kind of the dominant way of learning right now? How is art different?
Yeah. How is art different from science? From my, I guess, experience, I'm in my fourth, I have 4 weeks left of my program in therapeutic recreation and science, which has been a beautiful experience for me, and learning through that. But my visions and my understandings through all of that has been flooded through art. Everything I write or say or do, even if science is grounded behind it, it's art within it, no matter what. And I think the biggest piece of that comes from, who we are as Mi'kmaq. Sharing and expressing ourselves comes from a form and way of art. We've shared stories through singing, drum making, ceremony and circle, talking circles, creating beadwork, traditional regalias, all these things that make, we see the land and what it brings to us, and we use those pieces, to feed us, to feel beautiful, to express ourselves, back in, and you'll see in someone, we wear blue faces to represent the water, and you'll see, hieroglyphs on the faces to tell you a little bit of story about what we're talking about. But, those little pieces of science, that water runs through these river systems in our bodies and capillary systems. And that's science, but that's also art. How does our body express that? How can we move through something and show you, the pathway of the heart with our hands? How can I show you brown water seeping into clean, fresh fish water for salmon? And what does that mean? Science can't do that. Science can't share that piece of life with you. I think that art brings life to what we mean in science. And it holds like a grounding point for us. But in expression, I think art exists everywhere and always. But that might be just personal. But I'm sure shalan can feel and see on those two sides as well.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. It's funny, I've had this life where it seems like I'm focusing on the arts, then I'll switch and it looks like I'm focusing on science, and then I'll switch, it looks like I'm but it's been a life of understanding how they're woven together. And so for me, it's not that they've been separate, they've always been together, just me personally, and just like Elder Albert Marshall teaches about two-eyed seeing as this concept of mainstream science, or mainstream anything. It could be mainstream contemporary theater, and working with the people that I'm working with, other than Sarah, our non-Indigenous, director and mass coach and lighting designer. But they bring skills and understanding, and then we collaborate, and I bring the concepts and skills that I bring. And so, like what Albert teaches about this two-eyed seeing, as many have heard a few times, is mainstream, could be science with one eye, then this cultural eye. And that's not to be ableist, it's a metaphor. How do we bring these teachings together? And so for me, it's been like that with art and with a scientific understanding. So a scientific understanding of the land, and it could be an Indigenous way of science as well, but science has been telling me stories so that I can help deepen my relationship with. It could be with species at risk, with old growth forests, with water quality. So those whatever data or stories from elders that come from the land, those scientific ways, then those are stories to help me, those are teachings to help me have a better understanding of what's going on. And then how do we, as, for example, Indigenous people who have a storytelling like background built into the customs and culture itself, that it is through story, it is through song and dance, as story, it's through these mechanisms that you pass on the teachings and understandings of the cycles and of how the land and water work. So just exactly what Sarah was talking about, and just saying it in a different way. So I understand that from my Olnu Mi'kmaq history, that teachings, that Indigenous science has been taught and transferred through story, through ceremony, through dance and song. And so I don't really understand anymore why they're separate things. Like I understand that they do come together. And even when you think about, what some of the elders teach about in terms of the 4 parts of the self and how you engage with learning and knowing and coming to know, those verbs, instead of just saying, here's some knowledge, like put some stuff in, but that, this relationship that we're building, that really, from an Indigenous perspective, is using the 4 parts of the self, like Sarah was saying, heart included, that heart and spirit included. And so in mainstream contemporary European-based sciences, that we're taught in university that you have to separate the heart and spirit from this intellectual and physical learning. But from an Indigenous perspective, I mean, all of those learnings are all interwoven. So for me, I've given myself lots of permission to bring in heart and spirit as an ecologist into my work, because they don't have to be separate. So I'm not going to separate them. And my work as a storyteller, as a poet, that it's through the creating of story that I learn. It's through that work that I'm learning more. It's through this work that I'm learning more and reclaiming my Indigenous language. So if in my poetry and in my theater production that I am able to be learning and putting that language in there, that these are also some of my modes of of learning. And then if this is how I can teach other people, if I can be on stage and share some of these stories, and it could be stories about culture, but it can also be stories about the land. It could be ecological stories, and that's the science embedded in there. So again, it's like what Sarah was saying. Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful. No, I thank you both, I think, for helping to trouble a little bit some of the binary, dualistic, dichotomous thinking. I feel like part of our colonization has been conditioning us into needing to be attached to kind of a unified, coherent, one, sort of story and perspective is more valuable than the other. And what I think decolonization sort of asks us to do is to complicate that and to unpack the layers that we are these multiplicity of beings, that we have all of these dimensions that want to be expressed. And that to me is sort of what represents decolonization, is that unlearning some of that dualistic thinking. And yeah, so thank you both. I'll leave with a final question, maybe, of what do you hope audiences will leave with as a result of seeing your performances? And you've talked a lot about what we'll learn, what we can learn as audience members, but is there anything specific that you hope people will leave with? Message.
You have one thing, maybe I'll go first this time so Sarah can close us off. I want them to end with so many questions for people who are non-Olnu, and for the Olnu in the audience, I want them to be proud of where we come from. Like I've just chosen a few women examples as stories, but I want our people to be proud to remember, yeah, we come from strong people. And the non-Olnu, I want them to have so many more questions, and just keep the conversation alive.
Yeah, I think as well, biggest thing is to leave reflecting and with questions, but also remembering and thinking about what those voices are, who those voices are, and are they just humans or are they not? Who are we supposed to be listening to? And what is Mother Earth, Grandmother Water, Grandmother Tree, what are they telling us? Think about it and realize how each of these things affect you in your daily life, in your future, in your next generations, way ahead of you. And hoping that we all question and realize what matters to us.
Yeah, thank you. It reminds me of one of the first sort of teachings I got from a Mi'kmaq storyteller, film producer Eliza Knockwood. She made a film about water protectors, and she had a gathering and talking about the film, and she said she wanted people to, when they drink their water, to really think about having a relationship with water, and as you drink it, having appreciation for it, and really just, taking time to just have a relationship with water. And that was many years ago, probably 5-6 years ago. And that was the one teaching that really stuck with me. It was so profound, and something that we can continue to contemplate on, as well as the land. Such a simple way to rethink our relationship with water itself. So I know that, Shalan, that you're having another event tonight. Did you want to share a little bit about that? Is in person and online folks can join?
Right. Actually, I think Deborah is on here. If there's any more details, Deborah can share. But it's through the Dalhousie College of Sustainability. So we'll be talking about what inspired me to create Koqm. But it is also online. I don't know if Deborah's still on here. She can give more details.
Yeah, she posted in the chat there.
Okay.
I did. I posted it in the chat, so folks are welcome, if they can't come in person, to join us on Zoom.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks so much.
And Sarah, do you have any more, the other plays that you're in, are they sort of cycling? Do they have multiple offerings?
So Gigwaju and the Birds will be returning, but in virtual and hopefully through schools as a offering of a teaching about Peter and the Wolf, Decolonized. And Alan Silva and the Thundermakers are always performing. Maybe I'm not supposed to share that, so and with motion dance, Sarah Coffin and I will be sharing a piece about Samqwan called Udaf Diwang Gijinach, means Our Mother's Road, inspired by our combined stories of water and giving of life, into a piece, a sacred piece that we just recently created. So that's on April 8, 9, and 10.
Wonderful.
Wow.
Well, I thank you, Walali, both of you, really, for taking the time to be with us, to share with us, for us to learn from you, and to really amplify your voices. I think we need to hear more from Mi'kmaq perspectives about land and water. And I really hope to meet you in person sometime soon. And yeah, thank you for being with us. And I hope to see your plays as well in the future. So I think we're gonna transition again into the breakout discussions. And there are some questions there that we're gonna draw on for breakout discussions.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm Amanda. Hello, everyone. I'm noticing lots of gratitude in the chat. And I just wanted to share that as I was listening to the three of you speak, I'm in Apsamguk, down southwest from Chapuktuk. And as Shalan and Sarah and Diane started to speak, the sun just started to shine brilliantly here. I don't know if that happened where the rest of you folks are. But yes, I'm now going to lead you into breakout rooms where we will each meet 2 others and have a chance to reflect on what we just heard. So we will, we'll put some questions to consider into the chat shortly. And I guess, yes, we'll take a total of 15 minutes. So divide the time equally between the people in your group. And we do encourage you to take the 5 minutes for yourself to share and really think about what you're feeling and what, anything in response to the questions or into response what you heard to share with the others in your group. And when it's someone else's time to talk, at that point, it is your job to just listen. So listen with your full attention, with your curiosity, with your care. So yes, 15 minutes total, 5 minutes each, and you will see the time reminders magically appear in your rooms. So the questions are, what moved you or surprised you? What questions are you left with? And is there an action you are inspired to take? So we'll see you in 15 minutes. Well, people are still coming back in. Okay, well, welcome back to this main room. We're gathering in together. Now that we're all one group, we have a chance to get a glimpse into what folks in some of the other rooms have been talking about. And to do that, we'll now just take a few minutes to reflect on everything we've heard today from the speakers and from one another. And we'll see if we can draw out some themes together. So now if you just take a minute or 5 minutes, we'll do to in the chat, you can just write out any themes or insights or feelings that you'd like to share. So I know some of you are still thinking and still writing, perhaps, but while you finish up, I'm just going to read a few of these comments in the chat. As a Métis mixed blood person, I love arts-based processes of two-eyed and then third space seeing and knowing where we are bringing both our cultures, genders, and our land knowings into our understandings. Feel inspired and admiring of my three beautiful younger sisters and their amazing sharing of this with us today. I think there's a lot of work to do for settlers to research the history of the lands they live upon. I am grateful for these opportunities where we can come together and have honest discussions. Really feeling a sense of being a learner among learners, new ways of knowing and coming to know, relating to land and water in a way that acknowledges and cultivates deep relationship and healing. Such a rich presentation from Shalan and Sarah and Diane. Struck me on many levels, the intertwining of all things sentient and not, how we express and connect with that richness. We need to take better care of our land and water and hold the people who are responsible accountable. And I'll just read one more, but there's lots more as well. Sense of passion being passed through generations. Thank you, everyone. So I'm going to pass it over to Susan for closing at this point.
Thanks, Amanda and everyone. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what this is coming out of. There's a bit of a learning circle community that's been forming, and we have an online space called, it's a Mighty Network space, if you know that platform. It's called Land, Water, Spirit, and you'd be most welcome to join us there. Right now we have a Decolonizing Relations Learning Circle that's been meeting, and people have been posting and sharing, and this is an example of what else can come out of that in terms of having storytelling that we just open up more generally. And so we're also welcoming ideas for what kind of stories related to decolonizing and land protection and Indigenous sovereignty and water and food security and all things related to this place where we live. So I think Amanda's going to put that, yes, in the chat. Also, there is information about where you can find out more about the plays that are coming. And yeah, just thank you to everyone for coming today and making this a rich learning opportunity. We noticed that a lot of people left after the conversation among Diane and Shalan and Sarah. And so we're actually wondering whether in the future these could be shorter, just an hour, or maybe just some people want to just come for listen to the guests, and other people want to stay and connect and reflect more deeply. So if you have any thoughts about that, you could just share those just briefly in the chat right now, but also maybe be in touch with us to have both options, somebody said. Yeah, we have found this is following a format that we've been experimenting with since March of 2020, and we called it the Narrative Project. And it's really about providing a place where stories that we might not otherwise hear, and stories that we want more of because they thicken and add complexity to dominant narratives, and help us all learn. So we started having these back then, and they were always 90 minutes. And we just found that sharing and that meaning making were an important part of it. but I also understand, that people have limited time and we're trying to fit into people's lunch slots, which makes it easier for people to come. So I'm just looking back now, both options. Okay. Yeah, and it's fine if people need to leave on the hour and others want to stay. So maybe we'll keep doing that. And Amanda, did you want to say that we have an idea for the next, do you want to come on?
Sure, yeah. And I'm just also noticing Basha has asked if we could send a follow-up email with the various links and such. And I don't know if we
There,
also maybe want to
yeah.
share the chat.
And the recording, yeah. And what people reflected in the chat, we'll share all that in a follow-up email.
Okay,
And,
so we already have everyone's email from this then, do we?
Yeah, if you signed up on Eventbrite, we have your email. If you want to stay in touch and you didn't sign up on Eventbrite, then maybe you could put that in the chat.
Or send a direct message to one of us if you like.
Or send a direct message. Should I put, so yeah, why don't you tell us?
Yeah. Okay, so yes, I think we have another discussion lined up for 2 weeks from now. We've kind of arbitrarily chosen this day of the week, but like Susan was saying, I'm trying to find a time that hopefully more people can join us. So it will be the same time and the same day. So Thursday, 2 weeks time from now, from 12, I guess, to 1:30. So that's great feedback as well. Thank you. I think that will make a nice possibility for people that want to connect and go a little bit deeper into what has just been shared. So I just spent it's my second time, but I was up camping, and you might have noticed last weekend we had an extraordinary windstorm, and I was actually in the woods during that in a tent up at Last Hope Camp, which you may have heard of. It's a group of people, rotating people that have been trying to protect this part of a forest up there that's slated to be cut. So we're going to be having a conversation with between 1 and 3 people who are really involved with ecological forestry issues and conservation issues in Mi'kma'ki, and who have really put themselves, they're practicing direct action to protect what they can of the forests while, it's waited for the government to implement the Leahy report, basically. So yeah, just a little bit of a preview there. It'll be stories from the camp, stories of, what's inspired people to put their own lives on hold and camp through all sorts of weather to protect the forests here. So hopefully you'll join us for that. So maybe if you just want to book, if that sounds interesting, bookmark that date for now, and then we'll be sending out more details and confirmation at some point soon.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for all your work.
Yeah, that was really wonderful.
Thanks.
I loved it. Yeah.
Olin.
Thank you.
Thank you.